Busy little finger people who will help me sew today. I will, I will, I will. All those busy people say. Hi, I'm Karen Smith. I am Lotus and Ivy's kindergarten teacher, and we do many, many things with our hands each week. We draw, we paint, we cook, we craft, and we learn to sew. And so I thought I would give you a simple sewing project that you could do with your child, a little autumn leaf crown. It would be a very beginning sewing project, the second kind of project I would do in the course of a year, although we won't be doing these in my class. Something that I thought I might share with you as a way to get your child involved with sewing. So I'm going to change my camera so you can see my hands. I have a second overhead camera, so let me switch that real quick. There we go. And we will get to sewing.
Go.
So what I have today is a threaded needle. I keep it in a little pin cushion. We do wet felting in my class. And so some years we will make a pin cushion together, a little acorn pin cushion. Not every year though. And I have a long threaded needle. You will notice that there are 2 strings on the end of this thread where it goes all the way around through the needle and then back. It's very important for a kindergarten student to have a knot tying both of those threads together. And so for this age child, especially for a first sewing project, it's nice if the grown-up will tie this knot for them. As we progress through the year, many of the children will learn how to tie a knot on their own, but at the beginning, it's a good idea for the parents to do it. And this is how I teach it. First, you're going to hold both of those strings together in your finger, and you're going to wrap the thread around your finger once and twice, just around the end of my finger. And then I'm going to pretend my finger is sticky, and I'm going to roll the thread off of my finger. So I'm going to roll, roll, roll. You can kind of see it's twisting on itself. Roll, roll, roll. And then before you let it go, get your tall man and pull that. Have your tall man help you pull that tight. It'll make a good size knot. That knot will not slip through a piece of felt. So that's important. Another thing that is important is that the thread is large enough to make a crown for your child. If it's too small, this one is actually a little bit too small for me, it won't fit their head. So better to have it be a little bit larger in its length, the double length, if you will, than too small. If you want to make a necklace, you'd make it quite a bit bigger. If you wanted to make a bracelet, you'd make it quite a bit smaller. But for now, we're going to make a leaf crown for their head. And I have a whole bunch of pieces of felt that I've cut out in the shape of a simple leaf. Now, you could make lots of fancy leaves, different shaped leaves. They don't have to be this shape. This was just an easy, simple way to start that doesn't really require a pattern. And you could even cut them out freehand. You can see that if I folded it in half, it would be the same on one side as it is the other. And I actually took a couple of these leaves and chopped some little edges that looked a little bit like a leaf, but that's totally up to you as to how you want to do that. I also should talk a little bit about thread. The thread that I'm using is a size 8 pearl cotton thread. It's an embroidery thread, and many embroidery threads have 6 strands all twisted together. Super hard for kindergarten children to learn to use. This one is just basically a single strand that does not come apart. And you can get it in lots of different colors, but size 8 is a good size to aim for. All right, so let's start sewing. We're going to do a simple running stitch on this project. And so we'll begin by putting our needle into one of the ends of the leaf and pull, pull, pull. You'll see there's the knot on the end. And it won't come through because it's a good size knot. If you have to make a knot with your fingers, you may want to tie 2 or 3 of the knots to make sure it doesn't accidentally pull through the leaf. And then I'm going to sew all the way to the end. Now, if the thread is hanging out of the front side, the needle goes in the front side and pull. If the thread is hanging out of the back side, the side with the knot, the needle goes in the back side. Front, front, back, back. And it's nice when you can turn it over so the child can see where it is they're stitching. If it's hanging out of the front side, the needle goes in the front side. And pull. If it's hanging out of the back side, the needle goes in the back side. Now, depending on the size of your leaf, you may have more stitches or less stitches. I'm not being super tiny with my stitches because this is a beginning project. That's probably the largest stitch I tend to sew is at the very beginning. And as the child has more opportunities to learn to sew, then their stitches can get closer together. All right, we want to hook some leaves together this time. So I'm going to set that down and I'm going to put my needle into my next leaf, just like it did at the beginning. Kind of hard to see that maroon leaf or maroon tablecloth. Sorry about that. And I'm going to pull, pull, pull until they're kissing. Those 2 leaves are next to each other now. And I'll only be stitching 1 leaf at a time. That's one of the reasons this is a beginning project, because I'm not worried about hooking 2 pieces together on edge. I'm just sewing the 1 line down each one of my leaves. Now I keep flipping it over. Whatever side the thread is hanging out of, that's the side the needle goes into. This maroon leaf is maybe not a good choice because it's hard to see. So I'll get to another leaf very soon, and I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. I could also zoom in. Maybe that, yeah, that's a good idea. Make it a little easier to see. Okay, I'm at that end of that leaf, so that means I need to get another leaf. I think I'll have a bright colored leaf. There's so many colors of leaves in the fall. All right, my next leaf is attached. So I'm going to keep sewing. This is a running stitch. Sometimes that happens. Your thread will kind of get caught on one of the things that you're sewing. That's okay. Happens to me too. Just have to use your fingers and remind the thread where it belongs. So the children in my class, they will have sewing projects that we do from time to time. And each sewing project builds in the skill that the children will acquire. And after I make this little leaf crown, I'll show you some of the examples of some of the other projects that we sew in my class. But for many of the children, when they join kindergarten, it's their very first chance to sew. And that's really exciting. Okay, ready to thread another one. Down, down, down. And then you just do the same thing again and again and again. And I always flip it over. It's easy to see where I'm going on this particular project. Some projects I do not flip over. But for this project, I think it's probably easier if you flip it every time so that the thread is on the side that you can see. And that will help your child to know where to go. Now, at the beginning, they may pull really hard. If you pull really hard, it's going to gather up. That could make a really cool flower, but that's not really what we want on this particular project. So if that happens, just ease the leaves apart just a little bit. Might take a little grown-up help. At the beginning, Your kiddo needs some help when they're first learning how to sew. They need a grown-up nearby until they figure it out. And once they figured it out, then it's so much easier. On my first sample, I think I had 8 leaves. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes, 8 was a little bit small for my head. Again, depending on the size of the leaves that you're cutting. I have a little bit more leaves on this one. I think I had counted 10 that I have for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. And when you're making a brand new project, like a leaf sewing project, it might not be something that you finish immediately. So many things that we experience these days, the children want to be finished with it just that fast. But sewing takes time. And it's not going to be perfect. And I always tell the children in my class, it's okay if it's not perfect. Do the best you can. And that's all we can expect. Correct. I think I'm going to put a brown leaf. Since in autumn, there's lots of brown leaves where I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I think this would be a really fun project if you had different shaped leaves. You could probably find some samples of leaf patterns on the computer, or you might even go outside and use a real leaf for a pattern when you're cutting your felt. Speaking of felt, I always recommend that you use a wool blend felt, a felt that is not an acrylic, 100% acrylic felt, because that kind of felt just does not hold up very well when it's played with. But another material you can also use, in addition to the wool blend felt, I think my percentage is something like 35% wool, 65% acrylic, something like that. You can also felt a sweater. You might have had a 100% wool sweater at some point in your life that accidentally made its way into the washing machine and it shrunk really small. Well, that's what this was. This was a wool sweater that I put in the washing machine on purpose, and it shrunk down. You can see how much thicker it is compared to the regular felt. And when the sweater has shrunk, when it has felted, then you can cut it up and you can use it for fabric. And I get my sweaters at the thrift store. I spend, $4 or $5 for a felt sweater. A wool sweater, and I put it in the washing machine on hot on purpose. And I shrink it down. And then I can cut it into pieces, and I have a lot of fabric that I can use for sewing projects for not too much money. And I'm all about saving money. All right. I don't think I'm going to have enough room to make all 10 of my leaves. I'm not even sure if I have enough room for one more, but we're going to try. This is another piece of felted wool sweater. It's not nearly as thick as this other one, but it is a little bit thicker than the wool from the store. I'm going to stitch this to the end, and I'm going to have to use a finger knot, I think, to be able to hook these two together. Unless I can tighten my leaves just a smidge so that I've got enough room to make a stitch knot. All right, let's see if I can do that. I'm going to scooch out a little bit. See if I can tighten these leaves just a little bit on top of one another. Give myself a little bit extra room to end this particular project. So if your child is a beginning stitcher, it might take them 2 days to put all these leaves together. That's okay. Don't rush. It's not a race. Tell that to my students all the time. It's not a race. It's not about how fast you make it finish. It's about how lovely it is when you're done. Okay, that gave me a little bit more space because I need to hook them together. Right now, it would make a really beautiful garland. You could make a long one of these and you could hang it on your mantle as an autumn garland. But I want to make it into a crown. So I'm going to connect my last leaf with my first leaf. Whoops. Hold on. Slow down, Miss Smith. It's not a race. Make sure you got your pieces where you want them to be. Okay. I'm going to connect one end to another. So I'll stitch this dark green leaf to my light green leaf. Went all the way through. Now I'm going to want to do that again, a few stitches, just to make sure that it's going to stay together really well. So I flipped it over and I'm going through both leaves several times. Front, front. Back, back. All right, so made a couple of stitches. Now I'm going to make a stitch knot. On my kindergarten website, I have a little quick video about how to do beginning knots and ending knots. So there's definitely additional parent education I can give you. But for now, this is how I make my stitch knot. I put my needle underneath a nearby thread. And then I wrap my thread around the pointy end of my needle. Once, twice, 3 times for good luck. It kind of looks like a candy cane. I don't know if you can see that. It kind of looks like a candy cane. Once you have those 3 wraps, then you can pull, pull, pull. And it makes a nice tight knot so it won't come apart. And then you can clip the thread. Always be sure and take your needle or pen, if you're using a pen, and put it back in your pin cushion because you don't want to accidentally step on that. That would really, really hurt. Okay. Now, after it's all put together, if you wanted to cut some little leaf shapes, all I did for that was I used my scissors and I cut little tiny triangles out. Oh, just a small tiny little triangle kind of helps it to look like a leaf. But it's up to you. You do not have to do this. I think it looks very much like a little leaf garland, even if you don't have the little triangles cut out. And that might be a job that the grown-up helps with, just to make sure that your child's not accidentally cutting what they just sewed. You don't want to cut that thread because then it'll all pop apart. So there, that one kind of looks like a leaf. All right, well, I want to show you some of the other things that the children will learn how to make, depending on the year that they're with me. We don't make the same projects every year, but depending on the year that they're with me, my first project is always a felt bracelet or a felt necklace. It's a single stitch sewing project where you put the needle through one piece of felt at a time, and you're just stitching them all together. So lots and lots of little pieces of felt to be able to make a length that goes around a wrist. Or it's a little longer, and it makes a necklace. I think I've got one. Here we go. There's a necklace. So that's a first project. So you can see one stitch to the felt, through the felt, versus 3 or so stitches to the felt. It's a progression. And we also make every year we start with this project, and every year my second project is a water bottle holder. And so this was a felted sweater. That was the sleeve part. And we sew up, after it's felted, you can cut that sweater, and we cut the sleeve off and stitch it to the bottom so that you could put a water bottle into that little pouch, and your child can carry their very own water bottle. So that's a handy little project to have, a very useful project. Over time, your child will learn how to make a bean bag. Maybe they'll make a star, or maybe they'll make a heart. Or they could stuff that and make a little pillow. That would be kind of fun. Or they might make a moon, a little moon pillow. They might make a little gnome. That one can stand up because it's got a nice little flat bottom.
Sure.
Or they might make a little gnome in a pouch. It's got like a sleeping bag, a little gnome sleeping bag. That one's made with a bead for a head and some little buttons for hands. Or they might make a little fairy. A little fairy with some wings. There's lots of little sewing projects that we will do over the course of the year. And if your child is in one of my sewing classes, my sewing complement classes, I have them for kindergarten students and for first and second grade students, we make some really amazing projects that take much longer than the projects that I'm showing you here. These are pretty small, simple projects that don't take too long to complete. The ones in the other class take days to complete, multiple classes, and those classes last an hour each time. Typically when we're sewing for about 25 minutes or so in a kindergarten class. So sometimes we can finish a project within the course of a single class. Sometimes it takes more than one day. Just like this might take more than one day. That's okay. So if this is something that is interesting to you, I hope you'll reach out to Heather and Sarah and see if there's any availability in my kindergarten classes, because sewing is just one of the many, many things that we do each time, each week, each month. We don't sew every week. I should clarify that. We do handwork and crafts every week, but it's not sewing every week. But we have so much fun putting things together, and your children will be amazed that they can do that themselves. They can make their very own project that they can wear as a craft. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and keep your eye open. You never know when I might have something else to pass your way that's interesting for your child to do at home. Have a lovely day.